give us a view from the Canadian point of view. What are the red lines for them in these negotiations? What can they agree to? What do they have to walk away from?
Well, you know, David, I think right now the Prime Minister will be very happy with maintaining the status quo. This is the Prime Minister who's been very optimistic, very positive up until now that NAFTA can be reformed and can be improved. After meeting with Trump yesterday in the White House, he really acknowledged for the first time that this deal is in trouble. So what does the status quo mean for him? It means protecting the Chapter 19, for example. This is the dispute mechanism that really allows an independent panel to settle any issues around trade. That's been very important for Canada. They've done very well by that. Rules of origin are also very important. As you know, Trump would like to increase the number of spark plugs in those U.S. cars. Well, Canada wants to maintain the levels where they are right now. The last is supply management. This is a system by which, according to the Americans at least, the Canadian dairy and eggs business is fairly protected. They want access there. Dairy is a sacred cow up here, David. So those are the three issues that are very, very important for Prime Minister Trudeau.
Okay, terrific, David. Thank you very much. So now let's go down to Mexico now, south of the border. From the Mexican point of view, what are the red button issues for them?
Well, Mexico has always been very clear that the line in the sand is no new tariffs or quotas. And the Agricultural Chamber, for example, has told me Mexico would be dead set against any kind of limitation for seasonal trade on the agricultural front. Rules of origin is also a big issue. There are reports of extremely high rules of origin in the automotive sector, as well as possible, U.S. specific requirements. Those would be non-starters. But let's be frank, Mexico only benefits by staying in NAFTA. There's no reason for them to get up and walk away from the table. Our understanding is that they are willing to finish out all 7 rounds, bring their proposal back to Mexico City and discuss, and stay in the negotiation as long as they can. The biggest threat is if Trump decides to get up and leave, especially before or during the presidential election of 2018, which could throw everything into disarray for the election here. But there's no reason for Mexico to leave.
Thank you. Now, so Kevin, let's bring it back down to Washington. So given some of the things that we just heard, for example, rules of origin, dispute resolution, those are some of the things that Wilbur Ross has said are really critical for the U.S. to get concessions on.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on what Naha was saying, the administration and President Trump, they feel that unpredictability is going to help them. But in addition to international settlement dispute boards, as well as the issues that you raised, David, really, from the administration's perspective, they're focusing on dairy farmers as well as intellectual property rights. Now, when you look at what the comments of Secretary Ross that he has made, it's interesting to see how the politics really is influencing the policy here, because states where this is directly impacted include upstate New York, but also Wisconsin. Of course, Wisconsin being a key political state that helped the coalition to elect President Trump. So the level of unpredictability now, round 4, has been quite interesting. I would note that we didn't have a joint press conference from Prime Minister Trudeau or President Trump this week. I think that it's been interesting to watch. Everybody thought it was going to be Mexico and the United States that had the most contentious dynamic, but it turns out the Canadians and the U.S. are really the ones clashing the most over these dairy farmers.
Well, following up on that, David, I'd like to come back to you up in Toronto. What are the chances that actually we could have a 2-on-1 action going on here now with Justin Trudeau now down in Mexico City? Is it possible the Mexicans and the Canadians could really team up?
Well, that's a tricky one. Trudeau has always said that he's willing to, go to bat for Mexico. At the same time, he has to protect his own interests. And don't forget, if we're going to parse Trump's words, one of the things he said yesterday is maybe we do a deal with one, not the other. I think the Canadians are assuming that they're talking about Canada there and not Mexico, because don't forget that long before there was NAFTA, there was a free trade deal between Canada and the U.S. If NAFTA falls apart, there's a good chance you go back to that bilateral agreement, which Canada did very well by, and Trudeau is very aware of that, and he really has an upper hand, I think, on Mexico given that.